Dexter was dressed up as a cowboy. "Why are you carrying a sports bag?" his wife asked. "I'm Doc Holliday from Gunsmoke, and this is my medical bag." Marcia was dressed in a bridal gown, with a veil and tiara. Dexter knew it meant more than just wearing a costume. It was for the benefit of Art Russell. He heard Art was going to be wearing a tuxedo at the company Halloween party they were on their way to. Once there, Marcia spent more time with Art than she did with Dexter. When she danced with Art, their costumes made them look like a married couple. Art had divorced his wife, and it was final just last month. The party was going full tilt. Marcia finished dancing with Art when Dexter walked up to him. He jammed a hypodermic needle into Art's chest and emptied the contents. It was only seconds before Art fell to the floor, dead within minutes. Marcia started screaming and people ran over to see what had happened. Dexter walked over to the main door and locked it. He took his guns out of the holster and fired a shot into the air, letting everyone know the guns were real and loaded. "Sit down, be quiet, and you'll be unharmed. Try to be a hero and you'll die. I know a number of you have already called the police about Art, since I hear the sirens. My name is Detective Bruce Burns. When the call came in, I headed over as fast as I could. You see, I was in charge of the Halloween murders going on for the last 10 years. The department brought me in 4 years ago. The MOs were always the same. On Halloween, often at a party, a man was killed. The murderer used a hypodermic needle laced with high doses of rat poison. Once it entered the bloodstream, the victims didn't stand a chance. What made it so hard to catch the killer was that we could never find enough evidence to connect the murders. A big part of the problem was he or she would only kill one person a year. We assumed they were always in costume, which made for an easy getaway. A couple of times a person wearing a sad clown costume was at the same parties the crimes were committed at. The police never found the clown though. We didn't have any idea where or why the killer would strike. Sometimes it was even in the next city. The only thing we could be sure of was that it kept happening. The victim would more than likely be a married man with a high income. It would occur near Halloween and there would be a hypodermic needle involved. This party was on the 3rd floor of an Elks Lodge. Reports were that an Art Russell had just been killed by a Dexter Manowitz. Witnesses said he stabbed him in the chest with a hypodermic needle. Once I got to the building, I called the 3rd floor extension. "I'd like to speak to Dexter," I said to the person answering. "This is Dexter. I'm ready to tell my story, but I will only do it once. I want to speak to Detective Bruce Burns. I've been following my story and he seems like a reasonable man. I'm Detective Burns, Dexter. How can we get together without any more violence? The building is surrounded and there's no way out. Why don't you let the people go and come out yourself? Then we can talk." "No, I don't think so. You can come up here with a tape recorder. I'll tell you my whole story, but I need your word that you will not have a gun or weapon of any kind on you. If I see one, or if your SWAT team tries to enter before we finish talking, I'll start shooting people. No need for anyone else to get hurt. I'll be coming through the main entrance. Please just take it easy and don't hurt anyone." As I entered the party room, I saw approximately 60 people in costumes. They looked nervous but not overly scared. The door to the fire escape was closed and locked from the inside. There were no windows on this floor, so the SWAT team couldn't get a shot without bursting in. "Lock the door behind you," the man I assumed was Dexter said. "Open your jacket and turn all the way around." "Dexter, why don't you let these people go?" "You have me as a hostage," I replied after following his orders. Dexter really didn't seem like the type of man one would be scared of. He was on the short side, and weighed maybe 150 pounds. No one would have ever figured him as a killer. Look people, I'm not here to hurt anyone else unless I don't have a choice. I am the Halloween killer, and I'm going to give Detective Burns my story. Whoever wants to leave, you may. For those that stay, you will hear firsthand about all the murders, and why they happened. For those who want to leave, go one at a time out the back fire escape, Dexter said, facing the crowd of people. You little asshole. You don't have the balls to shoot anybody, a drunk named Jack Randall said as he went to rush Dexter and play the hero. Dexter shot him in the leg, and everyone screamed. Jack fell to the floor, writhing in pain. His wife grabbed a tablecloth and wrapped it around his leg. You stupid ass. I told you I would shoot if anyone provoked me. I could have killed you. But I know you slept with Marcia, and I wanted your wife to hear about it. Marcia started crying. The look Jack's wife had on her face said she knew Dexter was telling the truth. She slapped her husband hard across the face before turning to Marcia. You bitch, she yelled across the room. Another person spoke up and asked if they could still leave. Go ahead, Dexter said, waving his gun toward the emergency exit. The SWAT team will be outside the door. Tell them not to fire. Be sure you give them all the information on what you observed here before they release you, I said to the nervous-looking man wanting to leave. It surprised me that only 20 of the 60 people actually left. I guess they really did want to hear the dirt that went on in Dexter's life. Jack Randall left so he could get treatment for the gunshot wound. His wife decided to stay. I later found out they were close neighbors to Dexter and Marcia. Dexter started out by giving me a lot of information. He and Marcia had been married for 30 years, with 5 grown children and 6 grandchildren. Dexter was an accountant, and had been ever since he graduated from college. As he continued talking, he revealed that he was 31 when he met Marcia at the local library. She was only 18 at the time. Marcia was having trouble with her bookkeeping and Dexter asked if she needed help. At the time she was a chunky girl with braces. The two of them became friends and started dating after she graduated. She was his first and only real girlfriend. He thought he was her first and only, but found out much later it was nowhere near true. Dexter said he treated her like gold and gave her anything she wanted. When she got pregnant, Dexter was very happy to marry her. Within 4 years they had 3 kids. Marcia was a stay-at-home mom since Dexter made a good living for his family. After the youngest of the first 3 kids was born, Marcia told Dexter that she wanted to work. It would give her a chance to get out more and they could always use additional money. Apparently she had met an old friend who told her about selling real estate. The couple talked about it, and both agreed it would be good for her. She started by taking classes in the evening. After she received her real estate license, she got a position at Russell Real Estate. Dexter talked about how life for their family was a busy one. He had a 9-to-5 job most of the time, though Marcia worked by appointments. She spent a lot of evenings at her job. In the following 3 years, they had 2 more kids. Dexter's mother only lived a few houses down the street from them, and was available to watch the children on short notice. As the kids got older, life became even more hectic. Between Dexter and Marcia, they did their best to attend all the special functions the kids were in. Often Dexter would have to go by himself. They had kids in scouts, 4-H, band, and sports. He said he really didn't mind because he loved his kids and his wife. After Marcia started working, she went on a strict diet and began to exercise. She had just trimmed down before becoming pregnant with their 4th child. As soon as he was born, She started right back on the diet and exercise program. She did the same thing after their 5th child. That's when she had her tubes tied, since they decided 5 kids were enough. Dexter said that she really looked good and their sex life even improved. He mentioned when they first made love they both felt awkward. He said Marcia was the aggressor in their sexual relationship. She talked with her girlfriends and they told her new things to try. Marcia didn't think twice about giving oral sex, Dexter added. She loved it but always laughed when he came quickly. He mentioned that he was a little reluctant about going down on Marcia, but since she did it for him he did the same for her. The one thing Dexter said about his sex life was that Marcia was always willing and waiting. Even though he was short in stature, his member wasn't. After seeing a few other cocks in some movies that he and Marcia rented, he knew he had nothing to be ashamed of. Dexter, we've had a dozen people come to us over the years claiming to be the Halloween killer. They all wanted the fame for some ungodly reason. I'm here now because you used a hypodermic needle to kill Art. Why should we believe you are the real killer and not just some copycat? I'll tell you everything you need to know, starting with Joe Bussey, said Dexter. Joe wasn't the first victim, Dexter, I replied. I know. John Kane was, but it all started because of Joe. It was 11 years ago when Marcia wanted to go to a Russell real estate function. They had a party at the Holiday Inn to celebrate 40 years in business. At the time, Art's father was in charge of the business. How does that fit in? I asked, trying to put the pieces together. Art Sr. died 5 years ago and Art Jr. became the president. Marcia wanted to go, but one of the kids had a ball game. I told her to go ahead. After the game I would run over to the party. For this celebration, they invited former clients as well as their fellow employees from other branches. I didn't know most of the people, just a few from Marcia's office. When I got there, Marcia was in a 2-piece bathing suit in the pool. She seemed to be having a good time, so I didn't bother her. Instead, I sat down at the bar and ordered a soda, since I don't drink. I've tried it but just don't like it. Go on, I said. Anyway, I was sitting next to Joe Bussey. I had never met him before. He was pretty inebriated and talking up a storm as he watched Marcia. He told me she was the best piece of ass he had ever had. I was shocked. I couldn't believe he was talking about my Marcia. It seems he worked with John Kane, who had bought a house from Marcia. The guy told Joe that she gave fringe benefits. She would fuck and suck her clients until the deal was closed. So since he was in the market for a house, Joe said he went to see Marcia. He got the same treatment. She fucked him 4 times till the deal was closed. After that, she wouldn't see him again. I was totally lost for words, and couldn't think, Dexter said, looking around the room as he paused. This Joe guy told me it had happened 7 years ago. I honestly didn't know what to think. Had she really been cheating on me all this time? I had to find out more, but I was going to give her the benefit of the doubt till then. Okay, so what convinced you that your wife cheated on you and why the revenge after so many years? I asked. Marcia didn't change. She still acted the same to me and the kids. One evening after she left to show a house, I went up to the attic over the garage and got down all our past records. We never threw anything away in case we needed them later. I went back to when Marcia started working and looked at her daily planners. They had all her appointments and sales in them. It was almost like a diary of her life. Everyone she saw and talked to. I came across John Kane. I read how many times his name was listed in her daily planner. She also had an index at the back giving facts about the prospect. I noticed letters after some names. Then some, but not as many, had the letter HS. It took me quite a while to figure out the code. But when I did, everything fell into place. O was for appointment, P was for prospect, and S was for sold. NS and HS were for no sex, and had sex. One thing I noticed in the HS notes was that the home buyer or prospect had to have more, or as much, to lose as Marcia did. So tell me why you picked John Kane as the first victim. Give me something you couldn't have just read in the papers. Marcia was sitting on a couch crying during the interview. One of her sisters was sitting with her. Most of the people there just stared at her, waiting to hear more of the story unfold. They continued eating and drinking, which seemed odd to me. After reading some of the names in the planner, John Kane was the first I could find. I thought about killing Joe Bussey first. But I was talking to him at the party just a couple of months before, and didn't want to leave any clues that might lead back to me. So, what was your plan, Dexter? I went online and found how to make poison that could be used in a hypodermic needle to kill someone quickly. I went down in the druggy part of town and got a few discarded needles. I didn't care who had used them. It would just lead the police to some addict. I went to the store and bought a costume that you can find anywhere. I chose the sad clown mask, because thinking of Marcia doing those things made me sad. It was trick or treat night, and I drove around the corner from where John Kane lived. So you know, I did follow-up work on all the victims. I didn't want any big surprises, just revenge. Since I'm on the short side, dressed in a costume I can pass for a kid. I waited till there were no kids at his door and yelled trick or treat. When John opened it, I jammed the needle into his chest. I saw the look on his face as he fell to the floor. I quickly turned and headed back to my car. When I heard a scream, I figured it was his wife. I rushed home and pulled the car in the garage. Then I took off my costume and took my younger kids trick or treating. I didn't know if John was dead or not till I read it in the paper the next day. So, how did you feel about taking another life, Dexter? I asked. Scared that I might get caught, but no remorse. He had sex with my wife numerous times. Here, I have her planner where she wrote it. Dexter reached in and took out a stack of daily planners from assorted years out of his sports bag. You can't have those, yelled Marcia. That's my personal stuff. I'm sorry, Mrs. Manowitz. These are evidence in at least 10 homicides. You'll get them back after your husband's trial. Marcia started crying again while her sister and one of her friends consoled her. It was amazing how quiet the crowd was. What happened next? Life went on the same as always. I spent time planning my next victim, who was Joe Bussey. Other than that, we lived life as usual. I can't help but wonder why you didn't just kill Marcia, or at least divorce her. I can't say I didn't think about it. In fact, I thought about it often. The problem was I loved her, really loved her. She was a great mother and a good wife. There's no way I could have harmed her. At times I hated her when I thought about it, but she never flaunted it or brought it home. She never knew that I figured out what she was doing. Okay, Dexter, tell me about your second victim, I said, needing further confirmation he was the killer. You already know it was Joe Bussey. He worked in the same consulting office as John had. By picking him next, the investigators were busy looking for a connection. They never thought about going back 7 years when they both bought their house from Marcia. How did you set this one up? I asked. I had gone through the police files so many times I knew them by heart. Right now, I was still a bit skeptical Dexter was the man who committed all those murders. They were having a Halloween dress-up day at the office. No one was paying attention to the clown who came in. It was lunchtime and they were all wandering around. I waited in the restroom stall until Joe came in. As he turned around, I jabbed the needle into his chest. He fell back against the sink. A number of people saw me come out, but I had on the costume. By the time they discovered Joe, I was long gone and dressed in normal clothes. I returned to my job with no one the wiser. Was Marcia surprised when she heard of the deaths? No, not at first. After all, these were houses she sold 7 years before. A couple of names that came up later she recognized, Dexter said. Give me an example. Well, number 6 was a congressman by the name Bill Elliott. I remember her saying she worked on his campaign. Even though she didn't sell him a house, she slept with him. His name was in her planner. She fucked him twice that I know of. How did you get close enough to kill him? It wasn't all that hard. He went to a number of Halloween events. I just followed his roster and did him in when he went to the junior high school for a talk. All the students were dressed in costumes, so it was easy to blend in. Funny thing about restrooms, everyone has to use them sometime. So you know, I changed my costume that time. After 5 murders using the clown outfit, I thought I'd go with that Jason guy that was so popular with the kids. So why do you think you got away with it for so long? The investigators kept looking in the wrong places. They had nothing after John Kane's undoing. Then they were trying to find a link between John and Joe. Since they worked together, they kept looking at competitors or people in their office. After that was Terrell Bosley, the professional athlete. If you look in the planner, you'll see that Marcia showed him a number of houses. She slept with him twice but never sold him a house. He just used her. That's the reason I made him number 3. He was the only one that I used 2 needles on. Being an athlete, I wanted to make sure I used enough poison. Where did you kill him, Dexter? It was in a motel room. Even though he was married, he picked up white women after practices and had sex with them. There was a Halloween party going on in the banquet room. It had nothing to do with Terrell, he was just there for the sex. I was dressed up in my clown outfit, and used a card to open his door. He was fucking some woman at the time. I went up behind him and jabbed both needles into his back. The woman screamed as he fell on her. I headed down the stairwell, into the party room and out the door before the police showed up. They were busy looking at the husbands of the different women he slept with. Luckily, they didn't know about Marcia. Of course, they were together about 6 years before his death. Dexter continued to go through his list of killings. Some at their homes, others at gatherings or parties. He gave details that were unknown to the public. Dexter was definitely the Halloween killer. Okay, Dexter, so why did it all end tonight? Why did you kill Art Russell and let everyone see you? Why not continue on your killing spree? There are more names in here, I asked, scanning the pages of the planner nut. Who the hell understands this better? What would you have done in this situation? Comment down below, subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.